think the biggest thing that comes about out of unity is a home.
Mhm.
Um, the so as people were talking, I'm correlating stories from my cosmology. One of which is of the goddess Skathi, who's a goddess of winter, but she's also from the Jotner tribes um, as a giant. And she's known as a goddess of winter and a goddess of the hunt. And hunting for many people in our society today is a more masculine um, perception. But what we fail to remember with hunting is that the idea is that something must die for something else to be able to live. The deer dies to feed the community. So to correlate that back to the stories and the relationships and all of these things that have been developed to create the decisiveness, which in turn leads us to understanding balance, is what was lost. How many stories are of sacrifice for the community, and what must we sacrifice today in order to um, either retrieve that or to begin to recreate um, and create something new entirely. That would be I guess, my takeaway from that and thought that I'm dwelling on right now.
Mhm. Yeah, we're starting to get into the what is it going to take question. So yeah, so we're kind of getting into that masculine, kind of like that masculine, what I perceive as masculine energy. But what I heard is what that creativity makes possible is this understanding of what we will be covering in a few weeks is the law of polarity, which is also this idea that creation is destruction and destruction is creation. So, Krishnamurti, I remember hearing that for the first time from Krishnamurti, that creation is destruction and destruction is creation. There's that yin yang, kind of, non-dualistic perception coming in. So, I want to give everybody a chance to weigh on this. But what does this understanding, what does this understanding of sacrifice make possible? So we started talking a little bit about sacrifice. What comes up for you when thinking about sacrifice? What does it make possible?
I'll hop in.
Go for it, Nefertiti.
Um, it ties into my highest desire as well. So it's funny. Sacrifice the illusion of separation.
Mm, illusion of separation. Okay. All right. So, what does losing the illusion of separation make possible? Go ahead, Christina, if you want to, and
I,
unless
I
Michelle.
don't. I just wanted to say that's exactly the only thing I wrote down when you answered that. When you asked the first question, it's an illusion, is what I wrote down. And then that's the exact word that was used. That's
Mhm.
all I have.
Yeah, yeah. I'll check in with Michelle or Hemant. Would you like to respond to the question, what does what does losing the illusion of separation make possible?
I
Yeah,
think that, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. Actually, the very conversation again and again leading to law of oneness, I think so.
Leading to a law of oneness. Yeah.
Yeah, the very all the concept like Gerard's what said exactly in the story of hunting and what you said in law of polarity. What I'm seeing is everything is connecting to the law of oneness. And again, as we immediately remove the illusion of separation, yeah, it's all merging into one. So again, it contributes to the law of oneness. I think so.
Mhm. Absolutely. And contributing to the experience of oneness as well, too.
Mhm.
Thank you. Michelle.
I think that sacrificing the illusion allows you to sacrifice egoic
Mm,
identities and definitions that actually restrict and limit your creative force here. I think that our creativity is a direct reflection of our perspectives. So if you can sacrifice the illusion of separation, with that goes all of the restrictive identity factors that we place upon ourselves. And when we do that, then we're able to have a broader, more rich, more experiential process of creating, which is more adventure and more
yes.
joy and more happiness.
Mm,
Um, I love the way that that was said, sacrificing the illusion of separation. I love that.
excellent.
Mm.
Excellent. So let's, yeah, what I'm hearing, the backland gallery, what I'm hearing is that this sacrificing not just of a separation, but almost like sacrificing of that egoic self opens up the possibility of more creativity.
Mm.
So that's beautiful. You know, so what we did was in that last conversation was we started to explore the receptive, the emergent, the creative. Um, Before we go into what is it going to take, more into the action, the activity, and the structure, I'd like to open up the floor to that original question of what would be the highest possibility you would like to create for yourself in your life, maybe within the next year. So I'll open that up to anyone who feels inspired to respond to that.
Michael, before we move into that, I have something that I want to share that I'm experiencing when I'm hearing this. Um, the I'm kind of reverse engineering the question a little bit.
Nice.
Um,
Go for it.
so the illusion of separation makes divisiveness possible, and then the divisiveness makes exploitation possible.
Mm,
And so then if we go backwards, that's kind of where, anyway, I just wanted to share that.
thank you, Ray. Thank you. I'm glad you put that in there. Thank you. All right, so I'll go back to gallery view. Would anyone like to share what is the highest possibility you would like to create for yourself in your life or within the next year? Oh, Christina?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, okay.
I was trying to get it back. It's just me big and
Yep, no problem. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take it from where we ended here about this, sacrificing the illusion of separateness or sacrificing the illusion of ego. What is it going to take to do that? So I'll open that up to anyone who would like to respond. What is it going to take to do that?
I think for me to recognize that is to look into those stories of from our ancestors. That
Mm,
is, and begin that healing process by recognizing patterns, recognizing these triggers and things that I experience and how I react that have been genetically programmed in me from the experiences my ancestors had. Um, did they stand by and watch versus did they actively try to stop or create? Those traumas and triggers and so forth that are passed on are within me or within all of us. So to begin that process of healing and moving into that place, I need to really begin listening to those stories and recalling them and trying to figure out what happened and where. And that's a lot of ancestors to go through. If that makes any sense to anyone.
No, I love it. I love it. Yeah. So to go another layer deeper on that, there's a couple questions that come up, and I'll let whoever would like to take the baton next answer whichever question resonates with you. What is it going to take to initiate that kind of healing? What is it going to take to do that exploration on our ancestor stories? What is it going to take to look at those traumas and triggers? So those are potential questions that have come out of what you just shared, Jared. And I'll open that up to the floor. Whoever would like to take that question, or whatever whatever is alive for you at the moment. What is it going to take? Thank you, Charles. Go ahead, Christina.
Compassion and patience,
Mm-hmm.
not for the ancestral stuff, but that was your first question.
Mm-hmm.
I would, for the other stuff in the timelines, I just go into the feelings. It's not necessary for me to, like relive the actual experiences. Well, that would take a really long time. We have time restraints here. Or maybe you could do some of that in your sleeping time. But
Mhm.
yeah. Compassion and patience. Like compassion. We need to be heart led and lead with compassion. Did we touch on vulnerability? Like we have to be vulnerable. And how we're able to do that is we're first vulnerable with ourselves. And I guess we project that. We live what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great.
Maybe, and it just goes because it's frequency, so it just goes everywhere. And
Great. Thank you. So what I'm picking out of that, Tina, is what is it going to take to practice that kind of compassion and patience? What is it going to take to be able to be comfortable with vulnerability? So that's what's alive for me in that, in what you have just shared. So whoever would like to take it next, what is alive for you considering those questions? What is it going to take to practice compassion and patience?
I was going to bring up bravery and being courageous to stand up in a place of adversaries where people are looking to not be in agreement with you, and having that place of being brave enough to expose yourself and be vulnerable, like Christina is saying, to begin that process in a place where others aren't ready for it.
Thank you, Jared. So what is it going to take to be in those situations for bravery and compassion? Thank you, Hemant. Thank you for joining us. I'll have the recording ready in the next day or two.
I think what comes to mind is will, like the will forces. And also what Christina was saying made me think of time and space, like holding space for that and taking the time. And what Jared was saying too about the stories and like really making time to reflect and, bring up the stories. Yeah, I don't know. I think during the pandemic, people had time on their hands, and there was a lot of awakening happening. And so just kind of seeing that play out makes me think, yeah, it does mean that we have to spend the time that we have, which again kind of means we have to sacrifice other things. We have to choose how to use our time, and choose those things.
You're right. So I'll pose this question to Michelle or Nefertiti. What is it going to take to set aside the time and the space for that kind of reflection? I'll offer this up. I think one thing that comes up for me about time and space is being able to make a conscious agreement, being able to reach out to somebody one-on-one and really make that conscious agreement to make that time together. I mean, it's something that, I can think about it, I can plan about it or whatnot, but there's something about just reaching out to the other person and, you know, and having a conversation, having the conscious agreement about setting aside the time and the space and designating the role. Am I going to be the listener or am I going to be the speaker? Or are we going to share that? And does that naturally work itself out, or does it have to be coordinated? I don't know. That depends on the person that I am in relationship with, that I am in communication with. So my question then, to spin off on that, what is it going to take to reach out to that person? What is it going to take to reach out to that person?
I want to kind of go back just a little bit on what is it going to take to create the space.
For it. Go for it.
I think it would first take a conscious decision to remove judgments and biases for any of the stories. Which is can be challenging to do because most people have opinions which are cloaked in ideas of right and wrong and good and bad and other labels. I think it would take, before you would make the time to do that examination, you would want to plan on how you would use that time to challenge the construct of the judgments that would make it possible for me or anyone else to basically reorient and integrate all of that information and the duality of it. I think at some level there has to be some acceptance, but in order for there to be that heart opening of that acceptance, there would have to be a release of some of the judgments that would prevent the integration of all of that history and all of the duality, to allow it to come together, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely, Michelle. Thank you. And you're actually setting this up perfectly for where we're going with this. So Nefertiti, I'm going to pose this question to you. What is it going to take to be able to remove those judgments and biases?
I feel learning to be comfortable with the unknown and to be willing to rewrite a story or to allow a new story to emerge.
Let's go one more deep with that then. How do we allow that new story to emerge?
I have this thought of being a walking etch-a-sketcher and just shake it all off and start again. That's my dream.
Thank you, Nefertiti. That's great. So, yeah, this is also reminding me to kind of put this footnote in as well, and I should put this on the site. So Nefertiti has been part of a cluster called The Bridge that we recorded back in 2022 about bringing mental health practitioners and peers together. We call the peers challengers because they're challenging the system. So you're reminding me that I want to put that, put a link to those conversations so that people can get to know you better as well, Nefertiti. And Ray and Michelle were also part of our Exploring Integrity cluster that we recorded earlier this year. So you both are reminding me to put that link on as well, because I'd like to open up the possibility of others to get to know you both better as well. So I'm going to share my screen one more time here, because that's going to kind of wrap up where I would like to go with this about what I'm seeing is happening in the brain when we are having those conversations. There we go. Right. So this is something that I have been teasing out over the last year or so. This is a combination of Dr. David Hawkins' work with emotional calibrations. So on the right there, that's where you see the different feelings or the different emotions. And I've been doing some work looking into Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor's whole brain living, where she presents this idea of the brain being in 4 different characters. And my friend and mentor offered up the idea that these characters are safety, desire, curiosity, and appreciation. Now, in these living library conversations, the reason why I emphasize reflecting back what resonates, reflecting back what you appreciate, and asking clarifying questions is because it puts us into the curiosity and the appreciation portions of the brain, which I feel have gone underdeveloped, and I feel kind of tells us where we can go within our evolution. But in competitive environments, what I feel, this is, this is just completely my feeling. This is completely just my awareness of what's happening when I'm in competitive environments, when we're in tribal conflict. I've done some deep dives into cultural tribalism as well, is that the safety and the desire, which is the back left part of the brain, safety, the front right is desire. We're going through these feelings of, are we safe? So what is our fear telling us? What is our shame and guilt telling us? And when we have fear, we're starting to identify what we want as opposed to what we don't want. And that's starting to put us into the desire. So we get competitive and angry, and we have pride, and we experience courage. But once you're in a position of courage enough, you start to switch over to the curiosity side, where there's trust, there's willingness, there's forgiveness, and there's clarity, so that you can work in the back right quadrant, which is appreciation. And that's where you find your love, your peace, your enlightenment, your joy, and you're able to hold space. Now, I equate the competitive environments. Now, this is just me, and I'm just going to take my own, take my responsibility for this. The competitive part is what feels like is like the masculine, the structure, the one way is the right way. And the feminine part is more of the emergent, this holding space for complexity, so that we can weave ideas together, we can weave stories together, weave perspectives together. So yeah, I'm going to stop my share there. And I am going to just open it up here before we go into the final part here. Is there anyone who would like to offer up a reflection or something that you appreciate, or ask a question to anybody here tonight?
I think that the slides you were just showing were really interesting, Mike. Thank you. And it kind of got me thinking a little bit, looking at that one way of thinking, the or either or thought process as well. What role does astrology and things like human design and so forth. How does that fit into that construct if those are the only possibilities? Because that assumes that we are all one way, that we all have that same process of thought or thinking or feeling. And it doesn't take into consideration that my Jupiter may be 1 degree different than yours in the third house of what, whatever, whether or not, as a manifester versus someone who's a generator and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, it really inhibits and limits the experiences, which is what truly makes us who we are, the experiences of ourselves, the stories and experiences of our ancestors. Um, so I'm glad that you put those in there because it does help to get people thinking in that mindset. It helps to break away a little bit from those experiences and or that linear thought process, which is what this is all about, right? Looking at that duality, looking at the linear, that everything has to be the same, because we're not. And none of our experiences are the same. I don't have the same experiences as any of you, and that makes very different people because of that. But here we are all together, sharing an experience right now, and all having different feelings and thoughts and emotions about what's going on.
Can I reflect on what I'm hearing from the slide and also from Jared? It's interesting that you brought up astrology and human design, and the way that I think of it is, safety. Like, these are like parts of our brain that think about certain aspects, and then what feels safe to me might not feel safe to somebody else, or what feels comforting to me might not be comforting to somebody else. So I think there is a lot of variety within those sectors. And I think what came up for me around the safety and desire, it's interesting that you were thinking of it in terms of like environments, Michael, of like competitive environments. And I totally see that. And I think what comes up for me is like when it's a little more of like the um, kind of like how we prioritize our needs as humans. And the things that we first need to do is survive. So the first thing we try to secure is, shelter and food and like basic needs. So like safety. And to me, the desires would be needs, I think. Like, okay, I need food, I need water. And then of course they can expand more once those basic desires are met. Um, there's like universal human needs, for example, and they can be like play. Like if you can have all your basic needs met, then you can play. And to me, play moves into curiosity, right? And I mean, I've been taking care of children my whole life, and I like to say that I'm not teaching them so much as they're teaching me. And what they have taught me is that they can't do anything unless their basic needs are met. Like if they're hungry, tired, emotionally upset, they can't do anything else. And so we gotta feel that sense of safety, and that's different for everyone. And we have to have those desires met, and then we can move into appreciation and curiosity and so just to circle back, I think we all really need, just let that truck go by. I think we all really need our material needs to be met before we can sit down with people. I mean, if I'm working 60 hours a week to try to survive and get my basic needs met, I don't have time to sit down with somebody and like have the energy to hold space with them and like listen to their story, or myself for that matter. I did most of my spiritual development when I was a stay-at-home mom. My material needs were met. I didn't have to work except inside my home, and I had people in my life that were working with me, and like talking with me, and I had other, these like I had time for these conversations. Kids would be playing and we would be talking. So I think that it's important to keep in mind that we need those needs to be met before we can move into those other areas.
Thank you, Ray. Anyone like to reflect what you've heard Ray or Jared say and ask any clarifying questions if anyone wants to ask a clarifying question. Go ahead now.
I'd like to share what I heard you guys both share, and also with the how you divided up the bottom half of the consciousness. It felt like the masculine energy could be like the pulling back of an arrow to help us like shoot forth into that higher elevated area. So like they both work hand in hand, you know. The masculine can provide the foundation and the feminine goes flying away. Good stuff.
Yeah, what's alive for me is like what Ray was also describing as well too. The basic needs have to be met. That feels like kind of like the tension of pulling that back. And then, when we can get together like this and really identify exactly, where that tension is and where that struggle is, I feel like there's a little bit of a release, just a little bit of a release. I mean, it's, we're still in this together. It's, it's just not like you take a pill and you're well. But I do feel like that tension is starting to release just a little bit, being able to identify it. And by us taking the time to be able to identify that and unpack that, we are building an asset. We are building a time asset, being able to identify exactly why it's difficult to move into that curiosity space, why it's difficult to go into that play space when we're still trying to have our basic needs met. And where and who is the relationship that we need to have to be able to have that, that tension be released a little bit more, is what's coming up for me. Thank you.
And I'd even go a step further and look at the way that we're discussing this is very much in this idea of individualism, where it has to be, Ray, you mentioned I'm working 60 hours to get my needs met to do this.
Yeah.
When we have moved away from this concept of community, of living together, working together to meet our needs as a unit and not as individuals. And this concept of individualism is, Mike, you mentioned earlier how we, with the 15 characteristics of white supremacy culture, it fits into that. It fits into this either or thinking. All of these tenets relay on one another. And it's only when we start going back to this concept of community and understanding everyone as part of it is when all of our needs truly can be met, when we're doing it for everyone, not just ourselves, which in turn leads into universal basic income and all of these other things that will lead to success of us as a people.
I love that, Jared. And what I heard too is you saying basically that we have to, by sacrificing or giving up individualism, it makes possible community and for our needs to be collectively met.
Absolutely. Everybody is a piece of the puzzle. And I like to put this footnote in as well too about the relationship between our feelings and cultural tribalism, where when you feel like you're doing everything yourself and that your life is cursed and that all life sucks, you're in stage 5 culture tribalism, where you're just competing to survive and you're just part of a group to get your basic needs met and to survive. When you move up from all life sucks to just my life sucks, you're starting to get more into individualism, and that's stage that's actually stage 2. So stage 1 is all life sucks. Stage 2 is my life sucks. So it's all more about individualism, and you're trying to you're just trying to use people to get your basic needs met as well too. And then stage 3 is I'm great and everybody else sucks. And that's where you get into narcissism and egoism and that kind of those kind of relationships. Stage 4 is that, we're great. We're a part of a tribe, but we're competing with other tribes. So we have to demonize, or we have to make the other tribes the enemy. We see that in politics all the time. And then stage 5 is that all life is great and we're not competing with another tribe. We're just competing with what is possible. So this relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others is a reflection of those stages of how we function in our community, and whether or not we're in competition or we see ourselves in competition with other communities as well. All right, before we close out, Michelle or Christina, did you want to offer a reflection or a question on this final part of the conversation?
No, not for me. I enjoyed listening to everybody contribute their thoughts and ideas and perspectives, and just want to say thank you for including me in this space tonight.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, that was really good stuff. Like all the last one. When Aphrodite was talking about the arrow, that's what I see, the same kind of thing. And it's I see it as the masculine energy is like the action, and or it could even go 3D, 5D, and the feminine energy is like it controls like everything around it, and it makes it solid and stable. But yeah, like the arrow, and like I had just drawn an arrow like before she said that, like a little bit before she said that. There's I have lots of drawings on here, but yeah, I'm really grateful to be part of the conversation. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. All right, we got about 4 minutes left. We'll do what I call a checkout, and I just like to kind of check in as we check out with everyone. What was your takeaway today? Was there an aha moment? Was there something that after you go away from tonight, is there a kind of like a nugget that's that you'll be reflecting on? So let's check out with that, and then I'll give a little preview of next conversation, which will be Tuesday night. So what did you appreciate most about tonight? What's still alive for you when reflecting on this conversation as a whole?
Two things that I feel that I'm taking with me to heart is the infinity piece that was offered. 8 came up in conversation, and this remembrance piece that was shared. Yeah, those two I'm driving with. Thank you guys so much.
Why don't you pass it now?
Passing it to Ray.
I appreciate, I feel what's coming up for me is just the appreciation conversation itself, and the way that it flows, like the way that one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and it kind of really could go on forever. And then I also find myself like wanting to move to that step of what's it gonna take? What's it gonna take? But I really like kind of how you keep us in the possibility conversation for longer than I kind of want to stay there. But I think it's great. That's what I appreciate.
Thank you, Ray. I do want to reflect back on that. We can spend hours and hours and hours in just appreciation and possibility. And that's where the trust gets built. And that process, I would love to encourage everybody here tonight and everybody who's watching this in the future. Don't rush that. Don't rush that relationship building time where it's just appreciation and possibility, because that's where the invitation will come out. And when the dissent conversation happens, you develop the trust during the appreciation and the possibility, so that you can have a dissent conversation and not get not get completely frustrated or want to, want to walk away or whatever. And then there comes responsibility and commitment. But the appreciation and the possibility, that's what the living library conversations are all about. That's why I'm really harping on that over this next month, is because the appreciation and the possibility gets developed in the living library. Thank you. Mhm. Tina, Jared, or Michelle, what was your takeaway from the night?
I'd have to, oh, sorry, Tina.
You can
Oh,
go.
okay. I'd have to say remembering that so much of this and what we're talking about today is construct. It's been created or generated out of things to create separation or to create division. I really liked the last bit that you had, Mike, and I'm going to look further into that about the level one being, I'm angry or hate myself versus the next one, and further up that chain, and then also the math that went along with the ancestor generating, and reminding me that's a lot of plates to put out of food for people over the holidays, or a lot of people sharing off of the same plate. When we look at it from that perspective. So thank you.
All right. Tina or Michelle, any other final thoughts before we end?
So what sticks out to me, the stability piece, that was huge to me. You had asked earlier about a 1-year plan. I don't have a 1-year vision, but I do have a 5-year vision, and it's the self-sustaining communities, and that's the stability. Like, it feels like and it's community, and it's all that. A couple of times during this conversation, and when we were talking about you need forgiveness, it all goes back into this solid unit that we need each other. But yeah. So I'm thinking I was thinking about the stability thing. Ray touched on thinking and questioning.
Yeah, very good. And I would invite you in a living library conversation to talk about that sustainable community. What does that make possible? What does that make possible? What does that make possible? And then when you have that sustainable community, or when you need to create that sustainable community, what is it going to take to create that? What is it going to take to create that? What is it going to take to create that? So that's where we start to play into possibility, and we reverse engineer how to create that vision.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Michelle, any final thoughts?
Yeah, what resonated with me was the balancing of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and again, how we can come together to help each other make sure that each other's needs are being met, which would create that space for everybody to be able to move up, expand, not up, move out their levels of consciousness. I liked that a lot.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you very much. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. We will be meeting again this Tuesday at 6 p.m. to do the law of correspondence. So the law of correspondence expresses, the inner reflects the outer, as above, so below, as within, so without. So we'll be discussing that. Nini Castle will be my panelist on that day. Any of you who would like to also be present for that conversation, let me know. And I would love to include you as a panelist as well. And my kids are ready for bed, and they're calling me. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you again soon.
Daddy, let him say goodnight. Let the kids say goodnight.
Chess with us? You play chess?
Say goodbye.
Yeah, let the kids say goodnight. Good night.
Bye.
Like,
Good night.
Lulu, do you want to say goodnight too?
Yeah, good night.
Okay, good.
Oh, good night.
As others are watching this, they're going to get to know my kids too. Good
Good stuff.
night.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
one. Thank
Daddy.
you.